welcome back to another episode of Honestly Bilal, the show for the aspiring ophthalmologist, where I sit down and talk with medical students who are interested in ophthalmology, with residents who are training in ophthalmology, and with current ophthalmologists in the field today. I'm your host, Bilal Ahmed, and I'm a fourth-year medical student at the University of Toledo, and I'll be starting my residency at the University of Iowa in July. So today's it's a fun episode. We're going to be doing a reflection on the application season and what we can do to provide any insights and tips for anybody who's a medical student out there, if you're in your first year, second year, third year, about what we learned through the process this year. It was obviously a very different cycle. So we're gonna be talking about that, what we wish we did differently, what we thought we did well, or what we thought we did okay, I guess, and what worked for us. And we're actually gonna start off here by introducing my my panelists today. So these three panelists are people you've either seen or heard from in the past. Two of them are former guests of my show, and the third is a former co-host of the last episode, if you've been listening. So without further ado, I'll start with Ankur. Ankur, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Ankur. So I'm a fourth year at Northeast Ohio Medical University, and I just matched at the University of Cincinnati for residency.
Awesome. So then we'll go with Sana.
Hey guys, I'm Sana. I'm a fourth-year medical student at the Medical College of Georgia, and I just matched at the Kresge Eye Institute in Detroit, Michigan.
And then last but not least is Victoria.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I go to the University of Arkansas in Little Rock, and I matched at UT Southwestern in Dallas.
So number one, congrats to all three of you. I'm excited. I was excited to see everybody where they're headed on match day, and it's nice to kind of be on the other side of things now. First, we were friends as applicants. Now we are future colleagues, which is cool. So I want to give a shout out to one of the listeners of the show. This is Hannah Walsh. And Hannah actually sent me a message on Instagram, kind of saying, asking us to talk about this, this topic. And it was something that we had, wanted to discuss for a while, but I think she gave us a good prompt. So I'll read her prompt and we'll go from there. So this is Hannah saying, "Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm starting medical school in the fall at the University of Miami. And my dream is to be a pediatric ophthalmologist. I've loved listening to your podcast, and I was wondering if you would be willing to do an episode with a compilation of tips for medical students wanting to pursue ophtho based on yours and others' matched successes. What did you do right? What did you wish you could change? What are things really important to do right, and what things really don't matter? Especially in the virtual environment, talking to students about nuances in their medical school journey is more difficult, and would love to learn from you all." So thank you, Hannah, for that. And yeah, so we'll get right to it. You guys, let's start with what did you do right? I think that's a tough question without, to think about. I think it's easier to think about what you did wrong or something you're not happy with, but it went well for everybody and everyone matched. So let's talk about things that you maybe feel like you went into this process knowing you wanted to do, and you felt like it worked throughout the season or throughout medical school. So I can just go first because I kind of thought about this one ahead of time. So I kind of knew it'd be a tough one to think about on the spot. So I think when it comes to, I'll just go ahead and start off here. So I think when it comes to doing things right, it's really hard to do it one certain way. I mean, I think, and this again, all this is my personal opinion and the personal opinions of the other panelists on this episode. But I think when it comes down to it, I think for me, the big takeaways were, number one, knowing your story. I think that's huge because everyone's story throughout medical school changes. I can tell you from my personal experience, if you heard about my story, I did not do well in the beginning of medical school. I totally suffered and didn't do great. And I actually utilized that to kind of get my momentum once I figured it out. And I used that to get where I am now. But it was important in my story, starting off at a place that I felt wasn't the best way to start medical school. But overcoming that gave me the confidence to go forward and to see what made me who I was and what I could offer. So I think number one, knowing your story is really important. What are the highs and lows throughout your medical school journey that will make you a good resident, hopefully? From there, I think the other good thing is definitely try to find good mentors. And that's a broad definition. Mentors can be people you've never met in person. They can be people who you know quite well, but maybe are not in the field. But I think you need different mentors for different purposes. I found a lot of my mentors through this show, through Twitter, through social media, specifically in ophthalmology. But I've had good mentors in my preclinical courses, my anatomy instructor, Dr. Baptista. I think you have to have people in your life who really see you for who you are or can help you get to the professional destination you're trying to get to. So that's number two, try to find mentors, whether they're near or far, who are invested in you, but I think part of the ones who are finding the ones that are far away is taking the chance to, reach out to people and do it respectfully. Don't do it in a way that's annoying, but do it in a way that you're actually trying to spend time to get to know them or try to, pick some pearls from them. And, some people will be busy, but some will hopefully pick up on that and see what you're trying to achieve, and they'll remember what it was like to be in your shoes at one point. So those are really the good mentors out there. And I think trying to get, pieces of advice from them if they're in ophthalmology about the application cycle or about, how many applications to send or who to ask letters for, things like that. So having a good mentor helps. If you're at a medical school with a home department, try to get to know everybody at that department early, I would say. If I was at one, that's, I guess, I would maybe do, but I didn't have that situation. So I reached out to people on Twitter and kind of got the gist from there. And then, thirdly from there, I think it's really important. This is a personal opinion again, but I think it will help you throughout the application season. Hot topic right now, but try to see people as friends, not competitors. I think that's a really important thing, because if you go through your whole life as everything is a competition, you're just going to end up not having a lot of people to lean on when things are tough. And, I've been lucky enough to have these people on the show who I consider friends, and it's nice to get to see where people are going to end up. And I'm sure we're all going to see each other down the road at some point. But also, ophthalmology is competitive. We all know that. And competition is good. I'm sure we're all competitive in some regard, or played sports or anything like that. But make sure that competition doesn't overcome your ability to recognize that these are people who can be your friends, who you can have things in common with, who you can text with, you can send memes to, things like that. Because at the end of the day, you can collaborate and you can do cool things together. You can do research together. You can do some of the stuff that we've done together. We were all, part of the virtual interview marathon. We got to meet so many people from across the country just helping interview each other. And I thought that was really fun and I enjoyed it. And, I think that's just a key in life. Just don't think of everything as a competition, because of course, during a pandemic or during rough times, it's easy to kind of go within and to try to, think about yourself firstly, but, make friends along the way if you can. That's my other piece of advice. And then, lastly, I'll just say, be grateful, be thankful, be nice to everybody, be nice to medical students who are below you, be nice to program directors, chairman above you, be nice to everybody in the process, because at the end of the day, there's no easy way to go about this. And even if you do match at the place you want to, be humble about it, because life is full of ways to knock you down. So just try to keep things in perspective, be grateful for where you're at. And those are my quick takeaways for things to do right, hopefully. So anybody else want to go from there?
Yeah, I can go ahead. I completely agree with every single one of your points, including really getting to know your story, getting to know what makes you unique. That's what they want to hear in the interview, and that's what your personal statement kind of reflects, but they want to hear more about it. The mentorship is huge, absolutely, and having a good support system like these people here, and group texts and texting people when you're down and when you're up, and just having that support is really important. Definitely, I want to go back to having your own story. If you're in med school, you're not sure what you want to do, you're doing research in other things, or you're going on trips on other specialties, or getting involved in other clubs, it's still really important to bring that up in your interviews. You can talk about how it made you a better leader and what you learned from a global experience, or how a certain club taught you something. Even just patient experiences that you had on a different rotation, like surgery and medicine. It's really good to show that you're able to adapt to different medical fields, and you're able to talk to people in different medical fields and work in them, especially during your intern year, where you're not going to be doing ophthalmology for a year, but you'll be working in the medicine floors and other things. It's good to be really well-rounded, and also just kind of have your story in whatever you do. Your purpose should kind of shine through all your clubs and activities and stuff. And then the mentorship as well, that's huge. I wouldn't have gone this far without my mentors. I say that all the time, almost every single day. It's totally true. And if you can't find anyone to mentor you, there's always Twitter and Instagram. You can reach out to any of us.
Awesome points. Yeah, I think what you said there about the personal statement and about the interviews, I think those are great opportunities to really, if you have something that you really want to highlight that maybe you didn't do great, or highlight something that you want to emphasize makes you a good resident. I think those are awesome opportunities to kind of bring about that qualitative side of things, because the personal statement and the interviews, they don't really always reflect the research side of things or the scores. They can really set you apart. I think personally, I think maybe that's an opportunity for you to do things different if there's something that you want to really emphasize by yourself or kind of bring about in a natural way. Ankur or Victoria, anything that you guys have?
First, I mean, just everything that you guys said, I 100% agree with again. Going off the interviews and kind of, having your story and the personal statement, one other thing I'd say is I realized during the interview season that first, everyone in ophthalmology is really nice. And on these interviews, they really just want to get to know who you are. And they really just want to kind of bring out your personality. And so I think I found after a few interviews that the more like myself I acted and the less I tried to portray what I thought they wanted, the more kind of comfortable I got, the more comfortable my interviewers seemed. And so I think that kind of whole idea of like being authentic to yourself and really showing them who you are, because these residency programs are small. You might have 2 or 3 or 4, even the biggest programs are only 10 or so residents. And so more than anything, it seemed like they wanted to know that you're a hard worker, you're a team player and that kind of stuff. So really just, in addition to everything you guys said, I think being yourself is super important through all of this.
Sure. Victoria, anything for you?
I think especially with COVID happening during all of this, you're always going to try to be over prepared, practice all the interview questions and practice, sitting where you're going to interview and all your outfits, whatnot. But, sometimes your authentic self comes out with the questions you're unprepared for, or even just situations. I remember one day my internet just went out and it was ridiculous, but I felt like it was one of my more fun interviews because I got to talk about it. And I think just going off of what Ankur said, just being authentic and having fun while you're interviewing. But yeah, you guys all covered really great points too.
Great. Yeah, I think it's obviously worth reflecting on here because we are obviously all a part of the virtual interview cycle this year, which has never been done before. Just want to get to know from your all's point of view. Did you like the virtual interview cycle this year? Did you prefer it? Do you think, obviously we don't know the other side of things, but how did you guys, all 3 of you, how did you feel about the virtual interview season before and then after you were done with it? How did you feel after that? Go ahead. We'll start with you, Sana.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I got to meet a lot of great applicants throughout the country, and that I later saw on the interview trail, and we became friends, and it was great knowing their story from the interview, and we kind of cheered each other on throughout the interview cycles. It was great, and trying to help each other and go through something that no one has really done before. We're all just kind of the blind leading the blind, going through this virtual interview process. So yeah, it was definitely a great experience.
Ankur, what about you? Did you enjoy the idea of doing all your interviews from home, doing in front of your computer, taking breaks? How did you like that process? How did you enjoy that versus having to travel, spend money?
Yeah, I mean, I think, going into it, it was really daunting. We had no idea what it was going to be like, if we were going to be able to actually get an idea of what programs are like. But I think doing it, one thing is I have a ton of respect for everyone before us who's actually traveled and not slept in their own bed and had to coordinate all of this crazy travel between cities. And it was really nice to just be able to roll out of bed in the morning and sleep in my own bed at night. And when I have a break, I can go in my own kitchen and all that kind of stuff. So I think the convenience was just amazing. And then I agree with Sana that, I still got to meet a lot of really cool people. I think at a lot of the programs, they did a really good job of kind of showing who they were even through this virtual setting. And so, overall, I think my takeaways are only positive. I thought it was really great.
Victoria, what about you?
I agree with most of them. I think the one thing was when it came to making my rank list, I felt like I did miss that aspect of, will I like it there? Will I like the facilities? Are they nice? And that part, you really just have to find people that know where you interviewed and ask them questions. So overall, an enjoyable experience, but it left that gap.
Sure. And I think it's a great point. I mean, I really had that sort of crisis myself when I was, not when I was done, but kind of in between. I don't know about you all, but I was thinking about my rank list while I was going through the process and trying to think about it. And I think for me, I pretty much knew the places that I would put high up, but I still was hesitant about, do I want to live in this kind of place? Do I want to live in this sort of place? What's my life going to look like outside of residency? Stuff like that. And I think it's hard without visiting, and you can get a good feel. I actually felt like I feel like I got a gut check. When I gut checked myself, I feel like I kind of knew what was right for me. But I'm just wondering, did you guys feel that sort of process? Who did you talk to? Did you talk to your mentors? I mean, I talked to mine, and I feel like I was able to get some more context. Did any of you talk to mentors who helped guide you, Sana?
Yeah, luckily my school has a home opto program, so we have a long history of people who've graduated who matched in ophthalmology in the past. So I was able to reach out to a lot of people who had matched at different places from my school, just through contacts and stuff. And it made a huge difference knowing someone from Georgia who matched, across the country, how they felt, how they transitioned, and how they felt about it. Kind of felt like they had similar values and kind of experienced the same thing at our home institution. So they kind of had the same comparison. That was really important for me, especially when it came to interviewing at that place. It was also nice to just mention, I know so-and-so, and I talked to so-and-so, and we're from the same area. And programs really love that. I think they just really love taking students from the same place. It's a really great quality. Yeah.
Ankur, what about you? Any mentors that helped you? I mean, was there a place or point during the interview season where you felt like you were ready to talk to somebody about the places you weren't sure about? Did that help you make your decision in the end?
Yeah, definitely. I think talking to mentors was a huge part of it. And exactly like Sana, actually, someone from my school was at University of Cincinnati, or my program. And so being able to talk to them about their experiences was huge, because they were from the same med school. They had the same experiences during med school. So really being able to kind of compare and talk about what it's like there was awesome. And then even for places where I didn't know someone directly, just I feel like talking to residents either before or after the interview individually on the phone, I think really gives them the chance to be really open. And every resident I talked to kind of was always willing to answer any questions and really tell me everything that they could to kind of help out as much as possible. So I think, not only on the interview day and in the virtual socials, but talking to residents kind of offline or later was super helpful for me.
Got it. Victoria, what about you?
Yeah, talking to mentors, faculty members, residents from the programs you're interested is amazing. But I think something that I didn't expect was how much it would help to talk to your own residents at your home institutions. I kind of felt awkward approaching them, asking, "Oh, when you interviewed here, there, what did you think?" But really, you're stuck at this situation where, do I want to rank this higher than my home program? Because your home program so well. And I always felt like it's like a conflict of interest to be asking them, but luckily all the residents at my home institution were super open and super nice, and they just want to help you find your fit. So hopefully everyone else has that experience too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I don't have a home program, so I guess that's one thing I was wondering is the point you brought, Victoria, about how do you find that balance if you do have a question and some of your best mentors or people you want to ask questions to are part of that. How do you blur the lines there? How do you try to make sure you're in a position where you're paying respect to your own program, but you're still trying to find out the answers that you want to find out. I think another point is when you approach this, I think my advice, another thing I wanted to point out was, and I don't know if you all felt this way, but I think the difference between medical school, getting into medical school and getting into residency in ophthalmology is there's a different mindset, because getting into medical school, you need to have, and the same is true for ophthalmology. I mean, we can all agree you have to have, good board scores. You have to have, I wouldn't say have to, but it helps to have good board scores. It helps to have good research. It helps to have good letters. The traditional things don't go away from those. I wouldn't tell anybody to not focus on those things. Definitely do that. And in medical school, it's about the same sort of concept: having good research, getting good MCAT score, getting the letters that you need. So formula-wise, things about the same. But I would also add that intangible factor of what value do you bring to the residency program itself, because this is a job now in a way. They're going to train you. So, there's so many qualified people who are really smart, who have, great stats and numbers and are intelligent, can speak well for themselves, and we'll have people who vouch for them. But what can you do? I think it's important to emphasize, what can you bring to the table, hopefully? How are you going to make ophthalmology hopefully better? What ideas do you present to the field that will hopefully push it forward? Because I think, that was the way I kind of approached it, is I felt that how can I kind of improve that program, or what skill set or what natural ability or what ideas do I have that I can bring to the table to make them better? And and I think that takes a little bit of that soul searching that each of us needs to do, and knowing your story kind of ties back to that, is because when you know your story, when you know yourself, then that authentic part of yourself comes out, and that can allow you to be the leader or find the potential that you have. So I don't know if any of you felt the same way. I mean, did you approach it differently than when you got into medical school? Did you feel like there was a different, because obviously a lot of us haven't interviewed in a while or really had to represent ourselves. So did any of you feel that way? Son, we'll start with you. I don't know if that kind of same approach.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar, but a little bit the opposite, where I really knew what I wanted from a program, and I was very sure of what I knew. I knew that like programs are really different in terms of geographical region, surgical training, all those factors. And I think med schools are all really similar, not entirely similar, but the training's very similar. There's always going to be a textbook part and the clinical part, and there's going to be certain required things for graduation. But in residency, it's so different because there's just so many variable factors, and it's such a smaller program, and you're working so closely with people day in and day out. You're truly there all the time, and that is kind of your support system. For me, it mattered a lot to go somewhere where there was a lot of diversity, not only in the population but also in the program. And I'm really, really lucky I matched in Detroit, as great diversity there, and also just going to a place where I felt like I could talk to my attendings without feeling intimidated or feel like I was bothering them. And I really love Kresge because it just seemed like the residents and attendings are friends, and I felt that in the interview, and we got to talk about things that weren't even related to medicine during the interview. So it's just great knowing what you want from a program. I think when you're applying to med school, you want to become a doctor, but you don't really know the specifics enough at that point when you're in college to really know what you want from medicine. You're just very naive at that point. And I'm sorry, but yeah, it's just once you get to this point, you kind of know what you want from your training. You worked so hard, and so you really know where you kind of see yourself in 4 years and kind of the trajectory of your career.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because again, at the end of the day, that's the culture side of things. And to those of you who will be applying, you'll hear that a lot: culture, because it definitely matters. I mean, I think for all of us, I think the points that Sana brings up are so good, because those people you'll work with, ophthalmology is a small class size traditionally. Even the bigger programs, there's still less than 10 people. So you'll work with those people a lot. And even the attendings, you have direct contact with them one-on-one sometimes. So trying to find that fit, who you feel kind of, you have the same sort of personality or maybe the same geographic region where you feel more comfortable. If those things matter to you, take that into account. Ankur, what about you? Anything similar?
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much what you just said is that, the big difference to me, I think, is that these are a small group of people that you're going to be working with for the next 4 years. And so I think it was really important to me to find people that, I think would be willing to go to bat for me, that I would be willing to go to bat for, that people, test scores and board scores and research and all that stuff aside, it's the people that, you feel comfortable calling at 3 a.m, which I think is a little bit different than what you're looking for when you're applying to med school. So really that fit, that kind of culture thing. And there were some interviews where, I didn't really feel like we were in the resident room and I didn't feel like I got along or I would get along with those residents. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, it's just a different fit in culture and personality. And so I think even in this kind of virtual world, sometimes that was pretty clear pretty quickly. Or there were other places where you felt really good, you were laughing with the residents in the social room and you were cracking jokes and you all kind of were on the same level. So that was a huge thing for me. And I think the big difference between med school and residency interviews.
100%. Yeah, I think that's a great point, because again, like you mentioned, calling people at 3 a.m., trying to help, whether they're calling you or you're calling them, you want to be able to just let it be natural that you would, get up in a heartbeat, because that's what you want to do, because those people are, part of your team now. And this is a team-based sort of thing in residency. That seems like that's pretty much the way to go about it. And I'm sure we'll all experience that and be hopefully in a situation where we can be there to answer the call for people who are come up below us in training too. So I think that's a great point, because the culture, going back to that, people who you have that comfort level with, it'll make things a lot easier and make you feel like you can get the most out of yourself and get the most out of your training too, but also hopefully give back to those people and help them along their training too. Victoria, what about you? When you think about how you thought about applying for residency versus getting into medical school, again, a lot of people who are listening may be in the M1, M2 year, where they're more fresh off of getting into medical school, but they're not really sure how to get into residency. It's different, or what to think about when you get into residency. So how did you approach the process?
If I'm thinking about the contrast between, the application process for medical school and residency, I remember whenever I was an undergrad, I felt like I was just being tested at all my medical school interviews, like all the MMIs, the multiple mini interviews. And then you only get to meet like 3 people out of a school of, 500. So you really don't get to, I guess, get that culture feel. So I just always felt like, oh my God, I'm being tested. Whereas on your residency interviews, you literally meet the entire ophthalmology department because it is so small. So again, it's just the weight that the culture plays in the interview process. So I guess reiterating what everyone else said.
Sure. I think it's important to emphasize too. I think if you listen to everybody who just answered it, I feel like we all pretty much got a generally decent feel about the culture of the residents. Obviously, you'll find out when you get there, but for the most part, for all the interviews' sake, the virtual platform worked decently well, I thought, and I felt like there was enough ample time for, the resident interaction with faculty interaction, based on the institution. But for the most part, I felt like it was pretty much standard. So yeah. Guys, any last tips, pearls of advice from M1 year, M2 year, M3 year that you want to share with anybody who's out there who's nervous? I'm getting med students asking me left and right now about the process, and it's hard to think about it because even though we are fresh off of it, it's hard to think back to M1 year, M2 year, or M3 year even. So anything that any of you have for just going through medical school, whether you know you're interested in ophthalmology right now or you're just not sure yet, but any pearls of advice any of you have?
If I could do something differently, I would have been more, I guess, aggressive about my interests. Like I was always kind of teetering, can I get into this? I don't know what my step is going to be like. I don't know if I'm going to be competitive enough. But really, I think if you just dive right into it and just find your passions, you'll be competitive enough or you'll fit in just because the way that you express your passions later on will draw people in to get your invites, to put you on rank lists. So I wish I would have been less timid and really just gone gung-ho for all of it when I first thought about ophthalmology.
Very nice. Yeah, I think there's a quote that I heard this week that I think it was like really pertinent. It was, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And I think that's like pretty relevant because I think we have this idea sometimes, and this is partly why I named this show, honestly, Bilal, is that you have to, in ophthalmology, because it's so competitive, that you have to be perfect. Like you have to never, miss a beat. You have to get every perfect score, every perfect grade, perfect research. And if again, my story, I'm not perfect, not even close, but I think you can make it work, but you just have to start and you have to, you have to go for it and you have to dream for it and you have to be slightly obsessed for it, but in a way that you're healthy and you're taking care of things, but, have that passion for it. And I think it can take you far and you can have fun along the way. Sana, Encore, anything for you guys? Any tips you have that you could go back, you would want, M1 or M2 version of yourselves to know?
I would just echo what Victoria said. If you really want something, no matter how bad you think it is, like no one can tell you that you're like a bad applicant, and like you just have to believe in yourself. I think it's really hard to do that sometimes, especially if you don't know your step one score. Can I do it? Am I good enough for it? Will I match? I don't know, maybe I should just do something else. It's a little bit easier. But if you really like something, then you should definitely go for it. Then yeah, be more aggressive with it. Shadow them more if you can. Reach out to people or just watch YouTube videos, learn more about it, listen to podcasts like these, like just getting your education a little bit more broadened and experience in that field. You'll like it more and you'll know if you want to do it or not. And your passion for it will shine through a lot more than your scores. And if you feel like your scores aren't enough, you definitely can compensate in different ways.
Sure. Encore, we'll finish up with you.
I guess, totally agree with those two, with all your guys' points. I think the one last thing I would say is that, when you are at the point that we're at, when you're kind of rounding the bases post match day, finishing up M4 year, I think you just want to be able to look back through the last 4 years and admit to yourself, the only person you have to admit this to is yourself, that you gave it your all, that you did everything that you possibly could to set yourself up as well as possible. And if you kind of are comfortable with that and you come to terms with that, then I think you're going to be happy no matter kind of where you end up. I think medical school is really hard, as we all know, and it's really grueling. And there's so many just ridiculously talented people out there. And so really just kind of being comfortable with who you are and your story. like we've kind of already mentioned a few times, and knowing that you gave it your all really will shine through on the interview trail, and people will pick up on that.
Very well said. Yeah, I think I think back on it now, and I think I don't know if any of you feel this way, but it's weird because now it's February 18th, and I think every day, the first day of match day is just weird in general because it's just like it's just crazy, and then after that, it sinks in more, and then it sinks in less, and then you start saying medical school's almost over, and you reminisce and stuff like that. And now, I mean, I still have moments where I'm like thinking about it, and it's crazy. I think we can all think back on the journey. You start as an M1, and you think that there's all this pile of information, and you see all these really smart people around you, and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to conquer all this and do this? And it's a grind for sure, and it will be a grind at certain points where you're going to feel like you have nothing left in the tank. But I promise you, I'm pretty sure that all of us can attest to it. You'll find a way to do it, and if you do, make sure you thank the people in your life who supported you, whether they're family, friends, teachers, just people who believe in you, because it takes as the saying is, it takes a village. So guys, congratulations to all of you. I'm proud to know all you all, excited to meet you all in the future. And we'll do this again sometime as residents, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show again. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bilal. Thanks for having us.
Yep.
Thanks, Bilal.
Thank you.